My name is Beverly Russell, and my mum, Jean, lived in the Devonshire for 10 months. The way we found the Devonshire, mum was elderly, she was in her 80s, and it was becoming more and more obvious that she wasn't able to live on her own. So she actually lived in Bracklesham. Mum had a couple of falls, she ended up in hospital, and eventually she ended up in a rehabilitation home. That was only supposed to be for 6 weeks. Luckily, they kept her for longer because during that time we were looking for somewhere for mum to end her days, really. We decided that we'd try and find somewhere close to Worcester Park because mum actually was brought up in Sutton, lived in Worcester Park, so she knew the area and we could relate to different parts of that area. I spent a lot of time looking for homes. I think I looked at about 7 or 8 different homes and eventually came across the Devonshire. I made an appointment with Sandra to come in and visit the Devonshire. I was really surprised and impressed at how friendly the staff were and how everybody seemed to, including the residents, they all seemed to be happy and nothing seemed to be too much trouble. I particularly liked the fact that when we looked at some of the rooms, some of the residents were actually in their rooms and it wasn't taken for granted to just walk in. Sandra knocked on the door and asked if she could bring somebody in to see the room. And generally, I think in all cases, the residents said yes. So we had a good look round, or I had a good look round. I then decided that that was the place that I wanted mum to be. It was friendly, it was happy. They had a big garden and that was a big concern. Mum always loved her garden. They went out, they did visits, they did all sorts of things. They had music, they did dancing, and most importantly to my mum, they were allowed to have a drink. Not that mum drank a lot, but she did enjoy her glass of wine, which they did on a regular basis. So the next thing was to get her there, and that took some time because we were waiting for a space, and where mum was in Bracklesham, they were pushing for me to find somewhere, but luckily we stuck with it and eventually a place came and mum moved up. Now, mum wasn't the easiest of people and we were quite worried about how she would react, but mum loved it. She liked the people. She couldn't remember anybody's name, so everybody was called dear, but that was sort of part of the dementia coming through. All the staff were friendly, and if mum was sitting in her room, in her chair, somebody would always pop their head round to make sure she was okay. Did she want a drink? Did she want a cup of tea? Would she like some chocolate biscuits? And yes, she would. Cake and biscuits, mum loved, and there was plenty of cake and biscuits. So she had a really lovely time. She called it home, which was something I never thought I'd hear mum say, but you know, she did. She enjoyed going out. She enjoyed sitting in the garden. She used to go on the trips out to the park, but no, she loved it. And honestly, I was so grateful that we actually got her in there. She passed away earlier this year. And after a stay in hospital, it was obvious she was not going to get better. So she came home and she went home to the Devonshire, which is where she finished her days with everybody looking after her, and she was with family basically.